we move on to discuss Martin Odegaard. He suffered an injury in in the Nations League tie against Norway. No, not against Norway, against Austria, in a game that they surprisingly defeated Austria with a winning goal in the 80th minute from Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland. But they had that victory. Uh, they had that victory, but the big news coming out of this game is the injury suffered from Martin Odegaard, and it looks to be a bad one. He was seen on crutches going back to England after he suffered a bad ankle injury, and this is bad news with Arsenal looming. We talk about the Nations League, not Nations League, with the North London Derby coming up this Sunday against Tottenham. But going forward, the Champions League is going to start that following midweek. And then you have games like City coming up after that. This could be that could be a bad stretch. Huge stretch for Arsenal, and that could be one of the worst stretches for a player like Martin Odegaard to go missing, especially when you take advantage of the fact. Not take advantage, especially when you take into account of the fact that Declan Rice, he has a suspension. He has a suspension. It's only a 1 game ban, because it was a second yellow. It's only a 1 game ban, which rules him out of the North London Derby. But you also have to take into account that Mikel Merino, he got injured as well in his first training session, and this puts Arsenal in a sort of in a thin position in midfield. You're looking at the prospects now of having to potentially move Kai Havertz, drop him into the midfield, and bring in Gabriel Jesus, which you don't really get the creativity that you get from Martin Odegaard with Kai Havertz. You get something a little bit different with Kai Havertz playing a little bit in a deeper role than he is as a false nine, but you do not get the creativity that Odegaard gives you in midfield. And it puts Arsenal overall in a desperate position. A really desperate position now, because this North London Derby, it's a huge game, and you need the quality of a player like Martin Odegaard to be able to play in tight spaces, to play that sort of line-breaking ball that can create an opportunity out of nothing, the vision that he has, the quality he has. And now it's going to set up Arsenal to play very, very different. And I'd like to see how Mikel Arteta will set up Arsenal in this game with Martin Odegaard being out. Because we also another thing too, with Arteta, with Odegaard being out in this game. Actually, no, let's go back. Technically Odegaard hasn't been officially ruled out for this Tottenham game, but come on, let's be for real. He's going into the playing on crutches. It's an ankle injury. We know how bad ankle injuries can be. These are the sort of injuries that you wake up and it feels a whole lot worse. It starts swelling. You can't put any pressure on it. And if he's needing crutches, meaning he literally can't put any weight on it, let's be for real. He's not playing at Tottenham, and the look of it, this is going to be a multi-week injury. This is an injury that I expect to take him out of that Champions League midweek tie, to take him out of that Manchester City game next week. This is a huge loss for Arsenal going forward. Now, I think Jorginho coming in for Declan Rice, I think you can get a little bit of more ball retention in midfield with the quality he has. And I don't think Jorginho is really, the sort of line breaking ball player that Odegaard is, but you get a little bit of more, you know, creativity in there with Jorginho coming in as opposed to Declan Rice. But with Kai Havertz being up there, you're not going to see those sort of, line breaking balls from a number 10. Because Kai Havertz isn't a number 10. Kai Havertz, he's coming in there playing a little bit more advanced midfield role. He's really going to be a more advanced 8. And he's going to make, he's going to play sort of off Gabriel Jesus, interlinking with him. And, I'll see it's going to be hugely reliant on Arsenal to get creativity out of Saka, Martinelli, or whoever's playing on those on the wing, whether it's Trossard. The creativity is going to have to be there from the wingers to be able to create more, because you lack that with Odegaard being out. And yeah, it's just a huge loss for Arsenal. But Arsenal, this team has a great mentality, and Mikel Arteta is a really good manager. Now, so far in the season, Arsenal have set up a little bit more, not defensively, but a little bit more precautionary, in which that they, have a solid defensive base, and they play off that, and they sort of play back to front. They protect themselves defensively, and then they take advantage of moments and all that. Now, lacking that sort of creativity, will this lead to Arsenal, maybe, there's one angle of it that you say, maybe this forces Mikel Arteta to play a little bit more expansive, to get more people forward, because you lack that creativity. But also, there's also another side of it where you can say, okay, maybe this leads to Arteta continuing this sort of, defensive format, because you don't have as much going forward. So it's really important to keep that clean sheet and hope that the quality of Saka, Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus, Kai Havertz can nick a goal here and there. That will be enough to get that sort of victory. That's the questions that need to be answered for Arsenal and Mikel Arteta. And keep in mind, this North London derby, you're going up against a Tottenham that hasn't been clinical in front of goal, but has played in all 3 games excellent football. Now, they've had 2 disappointing results. That opening day disappointment against Leicester, and that game against Newcastle. But those were both games that, in terms of general possession, in terms of general play, in terms of chances created, they dominated the game. They just weren't clinical and ruthless, and lacked that cutting edge to, get a second and third goal and really take control in those games. They lack that sort of finishing edge to them. Now with Dominic Solanke, him potentially coming back in, because he was not there in that game that they lost to Newcastle. Can that make a difference? Is he the guy that can get you the goals? That still remains to be seen. But Tottenham can play some really good football. So this does put Arsenal in a really tricky position. I have to say, this is a massive injury. Big loss.